guys, so today is Samsung Galaxy Unpacked for the second half of 2020, and that means that there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's coming out from Samsung. We've got the new Galaxy Watch, we've got the Galaxy Beans, Galaxy Buds, but the two main things that we're going to want to talk about today are the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 and the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. Now I'm going to be real with you guys. There was a previewed, embargoed, pre-briefing thing that happened in New York City this week, but I didn't go because I wasn't feeling so well and I didn't want to potentially infect people with whatever the heck I had. So I don't really have any footage to show you guys. And if you want to see footage of the raw phones, there's plenty of YouTube videos on the internet that has that. I do not blame you if you do not want to sit through this video. This video, for me, is just kind of me expressing my thoughts about these phones, and I figured we could kind of have a discussion about whether or not they're worth it and what they're actually bringing with the Note 20 series. All right, so let's get into it. Now, the two main phones that Samsung is announcing today is the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 and the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. And weirdly, there's no Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Plus this year. I think Samsung wanted to kind of differentiate the phones a little bit more than they did last year. Last year with the Note 10 and the Note 10 Plus, there wasn't a lot of differences besides like battery capacity and whether or not it had expandable storage. But this year, it seems like Samsung wants to go all out with the Ultra version and then really tone down the regular version, which we'll get to a bit later. All right, first let's talk about the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, and here's the specs just so you have a reference. Now, the one thing that really caught my eye during this briefing that I had a couple of weeks ago is the fact that Samsung is using the Snapdragon 865 Plus in both of these phones instead of the regular 865. And I actually think this is a really good idea because on the Galaxy Note 10, I figured that they would use the 855 Plus to kind of help it differentiate between this and the Galaxy S series. Like last year, they used the 855 in both the Galaxy S series and the Galaxy Note series, and it just makes sense to use the newer processor instead of using the one that got announced at the end of the previous year. So this time, no matter what time you buy a flagship Samsung phone, you're always going to have the absolute latest processor, which is really nice to see. Now, otherwise, you got 12 gigabytes of RAM, you've got 128 gigabytes or 512 gigabytes of storage, pretty standard stuff for Samsung, using this huge 6.9-inch QHD Plus display, which can do 120 Hertz, but not in QHD Plus mode, just like the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus and S20 Ultra and all that stuff, which is a little disappointing. They're also using Gorilla Glass 7 on both the front and back of the phone, so this is actually the first phone that's going to use Gorilla Glass 7, so hopefully it'll be a little more scratch and break resistant than the previous phones, but we'll have to see. Now, the Note 20 Ultra is using a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, which I think is kind of weird because the S20 Ultra was using a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and this phone is running the Snapdragon 865 Plus, which uses more power, and it just seemed strange. I asked Samsung about this and why they didn't use at least a 5,000 milliamp hour cell since the S20 Ultra is using 5,000 milliamp hour cell. They told me that with software optimizations, they didn't feel the need to use a bigger battery. Personally, I think it's because the S Pen just takes up more space and they couldn't fit a bigger battery in there, but we'll have to see how that plays out in actual review. Now, the max charging speed for this phone is 25 watts, which is kind of weird because the previous phones used up to 45 watts. However, there was this weird controversy where the 45 watts would only charge from like 0 to 20%, and then it would switch to 25 anyway. So maybe that's the reason that Samsung is getting rid of that option. I don't know, we'll have to see. Also, they cut the reverse wireless charging to 4.5 watts instead of 9 watts, which is also kind of strange. And I'm wondering if that just didn't work that well before or what, but it seems weird that they would cut specs down on the Note 20 Ultra series. Anyways, move to the back, you've got a pretty intense set of cameras. Now, this is the Note 20 Ultra, and Ultra for Samsung seems to now stand for a 108 megapixel camera. So we've got that 108 megapixel camera as the main sensor. You've also got a 12 megapixel wide sensor and a 5x optical telephoto sensor, which is really nice to see because the S20 Ultra didn't actually have an optical telephoto 5x sensor. It was like shorter than that, and then they used extra information from another lens to get the 5x optical. So it's really nice to see that they finally switched to that full prism mechanism that's gonna do 5x optical. Now, interestingly, Samsung switched away from the 100x space zoom and is only doing 50x space zoom. And I'm wondering why they did that as well. I asked them and they didn't really have any comment. I would assume it's because the 100x zoom on the S20 Ultra was pretty bad and most people said it was bad. And so Samsung wants to like give this better, nicer image that their max zoom is actually going to look fairly decent. And the 50x zoom does look fairly decent. So I'm assuming that's why they did that too. Now, of course, this is a Samsung Galaxy Note, so every year they upgrade the functionality of the S Pen. Like a couple of years ago with the Note 9, they allowed you to take photos of yourself with the S Pen. Last year they added these like air gestures so you could control your phone remotely with the S Pen, so it makes it a little easier for things like PowerPoints and stuff like that. This year they didn't add a ton. They did reduce the latency of the S Pen by quite a lot, which is really nice to see considering super low latency is very important for getting that realistic feel. Also, apparently using the S Pen on the phone feels a little bit more like writing on paper instead of like writing on a smooth screen. So that's really nice too, especially since actual like walk-on tablets have this specific texture that makes it feel like you're writing on paper. That's a little bit more nice. Also, they added more air gestures so you can control your phone a little bit easier. You can go back, you can go forward, you can multitask. And I think the reason they did this is because they want people to be able to use the phone more as like a standalone like laptop phone. So if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation for your team or something, you can actually just swipe around with the S Pen instead of you having to use like one of those separate clickers. So that's pretty nice, honestly. It's just a little quality of life improvement. Oh, and finally, Samsung put this new tech in the phone, this new chip called UWB, which can transfer data at really high speeds. Now, Samsung didn't really go into detail during our briefing about what this actually does, but they basically inferred that it's made to transfer files between devices at really high rates. You could transfer photos or documents like super fast. Think of it as a really, really fast version of AirDrop. Or apparently you can use it on things like smart locks to like unlock your house. There's a lot of different use cases for it, but Samsung didn't go into extreme detail about it. So I'm hoping they either do during Unpacked or we'll try to get a little bit more detail after the event. Okay, so that's the Note 20 Ultra and it starts at $1,300, which is really expensive. That's like one of the most expensive phones we've seen this year. It is at the top end of the line. Of course, Samsung always wants their top Note device to be pretty much their most expensive phone that they offer, so there's that. Now, for people that don't want to spend $1,300, they've got the regular Note 20, which is $1,000. But they did cut a lot of corners in the regular Note 20 with features that you would probably want in the Note 20 Ultra. I think probably the weirdest thing that they're doing in the Note 20 versus the Note 20 Ultra is they're making the body out of this Glastic material, which is supposed to be like this glass/plastic composite, or it's plastic, but it feels like glass. They use this in the Galaxy A51 that I reviewed, and it felt okay. It definitely doesn't feel like glass. It's gonna be more durable than glass, probably, although I don't know how strong Gorilla Glass 7 is, but it just seems really weird that Samsung would sell a phone for $1,000 that used a plastic body. Usually that's reserved for like super cheap phones like the Google Pixel 4a. Now the Note 20 does have the Snapdragon 865 Plus, so that's really nice if you want a super fast, super high-end phone, but it is cut down to 8 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage with no micro SD card expansion. It's also 60 Hertz, it's FHD+, and it's got a flat display as opposed to a curved one. So it's very cut down, like quite a bit cut down compared to the Note 20 Ultra. The cameras are also pretty cut down compared to the Note 20 Ultra. There's a 12 megapixel main sensor compared to the 108 megapixel main sensor on the Note 20 Ultra. The telephoto lens is the 64 megapixel telephoto lens, which is hybrid zoom, which means it's not optical zoom. There's no laser autofocus, and there's no UW file transfer, so it's really cut down compared to that phone. So this kind of just leaves me wondering like who the Galaxy Note 20 is for. $1,000 is a lot of money. And sure, you're getting the Snapdragon 865 Plus, but only having one SKU with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, no expandable storage, worse cameras, an FHD Plus 60 Hertz display, no UWB file transfer system. It just seems pretty weird. You're cutting out like all of the premium features that you would get from that phone. And does anyone really like the S Pen enough to buy a $1,000 phone that is that much cut down? Honestly, I feel like you should just go out and buy a used or like a cheaper Galaxy Note 10 Plus, which is probably going to be cheaper and it's made of glass and it's just got a better design and it seems a lot nicer than this plastic Galaxy Note 20. It's just weird. But anyways, that's about it for the Galaxy Note 20 series. Now we've got a lot of information on the website if you want to check that out. And we're definitely going to have full reviews of these phones very soon when we get our review units in. But until then, I would like to know what you guys are thinking about these phones. Do you think that the Galaxy Note 20 is kind of a pointless device? And do you think that the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is awesome or is it overpriced? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's have a little discussion down there. Till next time, I'll catch you in the next video.